Well, here we have an instructional video by request. This is for the Royal KMM, but it'll also work mostly for the KHM as well as the Model 10, you know, the fancy one with the glass plates in the side, right? Because they're all essentially the same machine. I mean, they're not the same machine, but they're definitely members of the same family tree, right? So, basic controls, because we're aiming at people who, it's either their first typewriter or their first one in a while, right? Basic controls. Carriage movement. You have two carriage release levers. Going to be on the right hand end, this knob right here. You just push it down and you can move the carriage. And on the left hand side, you have one that does the exact same thing. It looks a little different though, but they both do the same thing. Just let you scooch the carriage around, put it where you want it. Your indexing, or rather I should say your return arm first. That's a basic, but you know, I've had people ask, where's the return key? How do you return it? That's how. Right now we're set to single spacing, so when you do this, it only goes forward one line. There's double spacing, and that's this. There's triple spacing. This changes the number of clicks you get there. Back to single spacing. If you look on the inside, right here, there's a little series of numbers that'll let you know which one you're on. So continuing with things over on this end, because there's a lot going on over on this end. As you're turning here, you'll notice a clicking sound, right? This lever, no more clicking. That's your index detent. That will let you spin your page and then drop back into the same registration that you had before. Now, if you need to change the registration, like you're lining up on something that was previously typed in an earlier session or lining up to a box on a form or something, you can use this guy, which performs a similar though different function. This one completely resets the registration, whereas this one just temporarily suspends it. What else we got? We got our paper release right here. This controls the feed rollers that are down inside there. There's two little rubber rollers. Actually, there's a bunch. There's four on the front and one big one in the back. But these are the guys that grab the paper and push it up against the platen, which, hey, that big roller right there, that's your platen. Getting ahead of myself here. So, I was talking about the feed rollers, but that also implies paper, which stick it in the back till it sits against those feed rollers, roll it through, and set your paper bale. Paper bale pulls forward, or it goes up. So what does your paper release do? Well, your paper release controls those little feed rollers down in there, which grab your paper and hold it in there good and snug, right? So if you release this, then you can scoot your paper around. Because sometimes you don't get it in there just straight, and you need to straighten it up a little bit. And that's how you do that. The feed roller paper release also performs another important function on these old machines. It releases the tension of the feed rollers underneath there. And for your machine to survive in the long term, you need to make sure that this is left in the disengaged position, you know, to where you can scooch the paper around. Because otherwise, those feed rollers are maintaining tension against this platen the whole time they're sitting there and that you're not using the machine. And if you come back in a year and go to use it, you're going to have flat spots on your feed rollers and it won't load paper. So always leave it like that. So that's most of the carriage controls. I haven't talked about the margins yet. We'll get back to the margins. Oh yeah, your paper guide. That scoots around too. I always leave it set to 0. So we got our paper in here, and we're actually getting to some typing, which means we need to cover the keys, right? What does all this stuff do? Well, you've got your shift, shift give you your capital letters. Your shift lock is right here. Just pushes down and catches, and you can disengage it by hitting either of the shift keys. A lot of old machines you can only disengage it by just the one side, but these Royals, you can do it on either side. Your backspace is right here, or left here actually, and it's hard to see on this particular one because it looks like they got oil or something down inside there and it soaked up onto the insert. And with your backspace, really like all of these buttons, you want to push through to the limit of its movement, but not really hard. Not the same for your keys. Your keys, you want to strike them like they're hot. But for your backspace, give it a good full stroke. If you only go halfway, it's not going to work, you know, if you don't give it enough oomph. So our tabular button, tabulator on most machines. Tabulator will move you, it's originally for doing columns in accounting and bookkeeping, right? But these days we just use it for rapidly advancing across the carriage, or across the page. And it has a clear button and a set button. Now, you can clear all of the tab stops at once. If you take your carriage to one end or the other, hold that button down, then hit your carriage release lever and slide all the way across. That's going to release all of the tab stops. So now, when I push it, it just goes all the way across, and we don't have any tab stops set. So, got my left margin to 10. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hit the set button. Now, I have paragraph indentation set as a tab stop. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, stop. And so forth, you know, just to give me a few stops all the way across. What else do we have here? We have our margin release. When you get to one margin or the other, and you need to go outside of your margin, hit the margin release. Or in this case, hold it, because on the left one you gotta hold it as you move the carriage. So that lets you get outside of your margin. On the right-hand side, it's the exact same thing, only you just tap it and it'll get you there. Because see, watch. There's our bell, so we have a few more spaces before the line lock kicks in. There's our line lock, and now we hit the margin release. And it lets us keep typing. Handy for finishing words at the end of a line. What else do we have up here? Ribbon selector. In the center there, it's going to be for the top half of the ribbon. On the red there is going to be for the bottom half of the ribbon. And you'll try to go to the right and notice that you can't unless you hit that little lock right there. Or rather, it's a disengage for it. And that lets you get into the stencil setting. The stencil setting doesn't use the ribbon at all because it used to be used for typing masters on vellum, you know, stencil pages, crazy things covered with wax that you fitted around a drum and printed. Stone Age technology. I love it. But we don't do those very much anymore, so you never really use that stencil setting. These over here, these are your ribbon direction controls. This one is your manual reverse. If for some reason your automatic reverse isn't working, you know, if you don't have the right ribbon spools on there, it won't work because these have a crazy little drop down thing that, you know, if it doesn't drop down, then your ribbon's not going to reverse. So there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with that, and if it ever does, you can just manually reverse it right there. This disengages the ribbon feed temporarily. For as long as you're holding that, it'll disengage it. And part of that is because of this. Check it out. This thing is going to spin. Which side are we on here? There we go. This is going to spin as I move the carriage. See how it's moving there? That's because the ribbon feed is directly driven by the carriage on these. But if you hold that disengage, we move it and it doesn't advance it, right? I think that's about it there, which is going to bring us to the margins. Oh wait, this guy. Forgot about this guy. This is the tensioner. Controls your back tension, controls how hard your type bars strike. Adds a little bit of variance to the pressure on the keys, just due to increased tension, increases the speed, increases the feedback on the keys. It's all part of the same machine, so, you know, make a change somewhere, you can feel it everywhere else. I leave that right about in the middle, or even on the low side. We'll leave it at 1 on this machine. So the margins, how to set the margins. Because this has the crazy magic margin system, right? Magic margin. And they're a little counterintuitive if you're not used to it. First things first, you can access the margins from the from the typing position by folding the paper tray forward. Or paper table forward, eraser table, whatever the hell they want to call it. So you have these 2 little doodads right here, and another set of 2 little doodads right over here. This is your right margin, this is your left margin. If these don't work on your machine, which a lot of them don't, because man, they're a pain in the butt to work on, they're really, really picky, they need to be super clean, and that giant, weird, loopy spring in the back needs to be properly tensioned, which most of them are shot, before any of this is going to work right. So a lot of the time you're just going to want to move them manually, and you do that by pinching it and sliding it and letting it click into place. You can do that with either one if you need to. If you don't need to, and your machine actually works correctly, then this is how you do it. So you're at your left margin, and you want to move it farther right. Well, hit your thingy, move it forward, move your carriage to where you want it to be, and reset it. Now, your left margin just moved with the carriage because this was engaged. Now to go back the other way, it's the exact same thing. Engage the lever, move your carriage back to where you want it, disengage the lever. Now my margin's right there. This can also work if you go inside of your current margin to snap this forward. And watch, as soon as I flip this forward, this is going to jump over to where I currently am. Here we go. Just like that. Shows you a little bit of what's going on there. Do it one more time here. This is just me manually moving it. So there's that. So that's how that works. This particular machine, the right-hand margin, was giving me fits, and it's still not quite where it ought to be, but man, it's a heck of a lot better than it was. The good news there is you generally don't move your right margin very, very much. Hell, I never move either of my margins very much. My left margin if I'm doing grocery lists or something, but yeah, neither here nor there. So, that's about it. Care and feeding of your Royal KMM or KHM or Model 10. They're all pretty similar. Oh, serial number. Yeah, if you want to find the serial number on yours and see exactly which model you have or what year it may be, well, on the back end of the machine, either on this side or on the other, could be on the other, you will find your serial number plate. And that'll tell you the model right there, which this is a KMM, and then the serial number. You can look up on the typewriterdatabase.com. This one is number 3222600, which puts it in 1946. So this machine is 70 years old as of this year, and man, she's working great. Cheers!